So this survey, because it had a shallow objective and because it had a much bigger mandate, we wanted to see everything we could see, and so we did. We went out and designed this thing to collect some reasonable data out to about 500 feet of offset. And people say, well, I don't care about stuff like out there. Well, you should.
Yeah.
It's that near offset stuff that's going to lead to the rock properties. It's going to lead to Poisson's ratio. It's going to lead to all of the other stuff.
Right.
That you were just talking to the quantitative interpretation guy over at Exxon about.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's the stuff he needs. That's the stuff that didn't get collected and doesn't get collected.
That's the data that needs to be put into these advanced rock physics models, right? Because we
Absolutely.
understand, especially in unconventionals, how big of a deal rock physics plays and geomechanic plays, right? We need to understand how that rock is breaking, and we need to understand the properties on why that rock is breaking in the way it does. But the issue is we're trying to leverage data that doesn't work. It's not there, right?
It has bits and pieces of the answer.
Right.
Yep.
Is what it
And
comes
we
down
run
to.
synthetics, and we start using the logs to help us fill in those gaps, and we start driving in these anomalies, mapping out those anomalies, and now we can do that on a 40 by 40 basis.
And ultimately, we'd like to get it down to a 40 by 40 by 40. I mean, literally a cube of space that literally that the engineers and the guys planning and drilling these wells can feel comfortable.
Wow.
I
can't
trying
even
to figure that out for several miles, laterally.
I can't even pretend to act like I understand how you possibly get all those events back on the right depth, the right time, the right... that just is blowing me away because I don't know much about it anyway, of the processing side. But what I do know is that we are definitely seeing something that's never been done. And now we're going to talk about what exactly that means. Correct me if I'm wrong. Is that what we're going to go into?
Let's talk a little bit about where it's going. So anyway, I threw up one of these here. Here's the courtesy of Dawson's out
Hey,
there.
come on, jumper.
And this is a plot here that most people that see 3D seismic might know what it is, but I'll explain it a little bit. What you got to know is this is a designated 41.25 by 41.25 bin space, and what you see is it's basically sorted data points from the shortest, nearest offset to the farthest, and what you see in the center is black.
Yeah.
We have every offset, every azimuth we need in the center. If you look at the very near traces, this little bitty corner down in here, and every single one of these, we actually have data. That's different.
We're not generating that.
We're not like, wishing we had it. We're not doing that kind of stuff. And you'll see in the super far traces, you'll see some striping out here, but that's, 16, 18, 20,000 feet of offset. But that's still pretty reasonable information out there. But the big point is we're collecting nears, fars, and we have really solid everything in between. And all that's like, well, if you're just looking at a structural map like I was showing you earlier, that's probably not as important, but if you're looking for the rock physics and the phasing and the facies changes and things like that, it's real important. So
wow.
So I think Steve Jumper said something about this here. The move as I see it is we're no longer exploring for oil. We know where the oil's at. We know it exists in a gazillion different horizons.
Yeah.
and it's all like, how do we get it out?
Yeah.
Well, that's the key, right? We know there's oil there, but how do we get that oil out economically?
Economically. There's the key word. So as a geophysicist or a geologist, we used to explore for oil and gas. We need to rewrite our ticket on what we're doing, and it needs to be centered around the concept of exploitation. How do we help? How do we put together a team of people that can find and better exploit the resources?
Yeah.
Right.
So with that in mind, I pulled this. This is an old Fasken. Drill here, drill here, drill. That was structural seismic.
Mm-hmm.
You had a big blooming here. That's a gas cloud. That's a gas.
We had a little bump.
Yeah, and so we were driving the show. Go out, collect data. We put it together, and we plop it down on the manager's desk, and they say, "Okay, Billy Bob, let's go. Let's get this done now.
Get that rig out there."
But guess what? If you move forward to here, okay, where's the oil?
Where are you going?
Well, it's everywhere. It's here. It's here. It's over here, but it's not here. It's not over here. How do you tell? How do you know where in this whole section that you want to go exploit the resources.
Right.
Yep.
And so what's happened is the details that we're after are just that. They're details. They're hard to see. You have to have an enormous amount more of what we call pre-stack data
Yep.
to figure this stuff out. So from my perspective, this is a survey that's designed to get us to 40, 40, 40.
Yeah.
40 feet by 40 feet by 40 feet. That's where we're going. That's what we're trying to get to. We're trying to get sampled information vertically and laterally and build a cube of the earth and figure out what's down there.
Yep.
What's a little bit different is as we talk about, this is real data. Okay, it's just between you and me, right, guys? Nobody else is
No one's gonna hear it. No, this is a secret that stays at this table.
So one of the top secrets in the processing world is we're pretty good at fixing stuff, right?
Yeah.
We can fix stuff, right? So we build all these really cool tools to take care of problems. In fact, the guys in the field, they'll say, don't worry about it. Processing will fix that.
Wow.
Okay?
Yeah.
So
Fixing it based on someone's interpretation of how it should look.
Yeah.
that's correct. Or if you didn't collect it, well, we can kind of extrapolate or extend it or
Right.
interpolate it, or we'll do something.
Right.
So that was another criteria of this whole thing. Is we want to come up with real data. We want to base it on real data. We want to be able to then we'll play with our tools. We'll actually do some of the high tech, interesting stuff like CSI and 5DI and some of the other really cool stuff. We'll test that.
Yeah.
But we'll be able to have the answer to see if it works. Okay, so that's a direction in itself is part of the goal. And if it does work, then maybe we can get to that 20-20-20.
Sure.
Maybe we can give those engineers that what they really want is that 20 foot type spacing. So from my perspective, it's all about exploitation. It's all about pre-stack information. And from and this is kind of what I've come up with. I've spent a lot of time talking to a lot of different clients, and it comes down to something called a seismic facies. And can we tie a seismic facies to a geologic facies? And if we can make those correlations, can we then tie that to the reservoir mechanics?
Right.
Okay.
I think you just in one bullet point describe the unconventional workflow.
That's it. And
Right.
it's different. And we've got to figure out a way to actually work together and find a way to make that happen.
You starting with that rock, moving into that geophysical space, and then moving into the reservoir mechanics space. But like you were saying, that's not possible with the old way of doing things. Well, it's not possible
Right.
to do it effectively.
Right. I think
Right.
we've been cutting our teeth on figuring it out. We got some great software. We got some great super intellectual people working on this problem. And in the marine world, you actually collect some fairly dense data. So they've actually proven a lot of this stuff up in the marine world on how to get to where we're going. But in the land world, we've been limited, and we've been unsuccessful at getting enough data points to do this stuff.
Well, not only that, I mean, in the Permian, as anyone who's ever worked the Permian knows, the big issues with the salts and anhydrites at the surface, it just adds so much extra complexity into it.
Strips out the data. The data's not even there. It's not even coming back.
Yeah, if you look at the in the Delaware Basin side, I gave a talk a year or so ago. I called it my subsalt play on shore, because basically the anhydrites and the salt and the reefing up shallow.
Yeah.
You've got this 20,000 feet per second rock at the surface, and then you immediately go below that into your shales and
limes.
limes, and you cut it back to 13,000 feet per. So you have this massive inversion, which is like a subsalt play.
Yep.
Wow.
And guess what? We don't sample any of that
subsalt
stuff.
basin.
Yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, we just need a lot more data. We need a lot more data in a lot more places. We need a lot more near trace stuff. We need more far trace stuff. So.
Wow. I mean, how fascinating. And coming from our side and our perspective, we're a little bit more on the geoscience side, not so much geophysics. We certainly appreciate it, and we use it without question. But, the end game is certainly not just collecting and providing the image to have the answers. You still have to have a very sharp geologic interpretation, and you need to still have really good engineers to understand how the connectivity of the fluids in the reservoir, how when that frac is initiated, that fluid is actually coming back to best develop this field, this area, this asset, whatever it is.
Absolutely, yeah.
This is going to drive a lot of answers, and it's going to be unbelievable, but it cannot take away the fact that we still, without question, have a lot more to do on our understanding of this fluid coming into the wellbore, why we're landing the way we are, why we're putting the fracks away the way that we are. And so and it's a perfect time for that, because that's where we're at. This window of time today is exactly that. We are looking for those answers. We're challenging the interpretations to find those answers. At the same time, we have people like you that are driving real data and a real product that says, here's what it is.
Yep.
This is the data. And now our interpretations are getting stronger, more support. You can now do a fracture network that for your thesis that actually you see. You're not making an interpretation.
Yep.
Geologic interpretation sound. Any structural geologists say, yes, your natural fractures are going that way.
Mm-hmm.
Now, can we see them? We want to see them.
Well, the answer to that question is yes and no, and maybe, and we don't know yet. Okay,
This is true. That's right.
Yes, no, maybe so. Who knows?
You know, and so from that perspective, the other thing this survey does that a lot of people don't get is this is actually going to be a converted wave, a multi-component survey.
Right.
And so, as someone who's worked in the 3-component and in the 9-component world for the last 25 years, it's been a hit or miss. You know, it's been very isolated. It's never caught on, okay? And for the first time in the last 4 or 5 years, I felt like maybe they've actually hit on something in these resource plays, these shale plays.
Yeah.
Because they care about the fracture orientation.
Right.
They care about open fractures, closed fractures. They care about the intensity of that kind of information. That's all real important. But guess what else they care about? Shear wave velocities.
Right.
Okay? Up until recently, you know, nobody really cared that much about shear wave velocity. Well, why do they care about shear wave velocities?
Yeah.
Well, we got a measured P wave velocity out here. We're gonna go out and do a bunch of funky math to come up with some high angle information in the P wave world to get a calculated shear wave velocity.
We're going to throw it into our hand wavy model to get a hand wavy result.
Yeah. You know, kind of the cheerleading model.
Look at the hand
Cheerleading
wave.
model.
hand wave.
Yeah, that was
Absolutely. You know.
that was legit.
So, but what if we actually collected it? What if we actually collected that
Right.
shear wave and you had
Right.
a P wave, a compressional velocity, and a shear wave velocity? You get a VPVS. Now you're after density. Now, if you start talking density to the people that I'm talking to, they're like telling me that's the holy grail. That's the piece of the puzzle they need more accuracy in.
Wow.
So if they get the density function, they can define more geologic facies, more elastic facies. So from that perspective, that's kind of the direction. So this is the hope. This is the big thing out there that we're hoping to get some converted wave.
Okay.
I do have this is cool. This is really cool. My good buddy Glenn Winters, who worked at Fasken Oil and Ranch for many years, retired. He and I did a whole bunch of projects out here, and we did an arm waving show years ago, and we did a dog and pony out there in the
hand
middle of
waving
exploration.
tour.
Yeah. And we came up with this mini little 3D converted wave data volume at the time. But I love this. The next key to rejuvenating the basin. What does that mean? The basin was dead at this point in time. 2005.
Wow.
It was not an exciting place to be.
You guys were doing that in 2005.
Well, was it in the 90s when all the super majors condemned it? They just
Yep,
said,
it's
there's
done.
no oil left.
It's
We're
done.
out.
How crazy was that?
Yeah.
So
We have no idea what that felt like. Can't even imagine it.
No, I can't.
They were wrong.
They're wrong.
So anyway, this was kind of like a foreshadowing here of what's coming up. But we ended up on this little bitty project. You ended up with this kind of like anomaly that was kind of cool. And from that anomaly, we were able to actually see some of this higher amplitude versus lower amplitude information down at the Strawn, which is what you were looking at.
Yeah.
Guess what? The Wolf Camp wasn't even considered.
Yeah.
Wasn't even a target in 2005.
The Wolf
believe
Camp,
it.
I mean, from legends that we've talked to, has always been that formation. Oh, we got to mud up. We're going through the Wolf
Yeah,
Camp
exactly.
again.
Yeah.
It overpressured zone that never delivers, you know?
Exactly. So when you go back and look at the stuff we did in 2005, we're chasing this little tiny amplitude change here. Well, look at the size of the amplitude change in the Wolf Camp
Yeah.
that we
Oh,
captured
yeah.
back then. So when you start looking at that, and this here's truly old school. This is cut and paste. Remember, you had like a crayon and you had scissors and stuff.
You just
Well,
opened
they
up. You opened up
software
paint in one window.
So
Yeah.
the software did the exact same thing, and that was fascinating.
Yeah.
We can cut and paste in the software.
So, but it's really cool because we had this like standard seismic P-wave section out here, and Glenn went out and cut and paste and tied the San Andreas up here, and he had a really solid tie down at the Strawn. Good registration.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the big thing, going through the Sprayberry and down through the Wolfcamp section. Well, these don't even look like they're even the same data
Right.
set.
No.
Okay.
Right, what's up with that?
Well, shear waves give us different information. This here could be some of the Holy Grail stuff that we hope for. Okay.
How
we
cool
don't
is it?
know what all this stuff means, but we know it's legit.
Yeah.
So
It
you've
could
done a
be
converted.
fluid.
You've done a converted wave on the old data set, on the whole thing.
No, just a
Oh.
small postage stamp.
Well, it'd be cool to match
Ah.
that up.
There you go. Now you're talking about what I call the breathing of the reservoir, the opening and closing, the 4D aspect of what we could get to when we
Wow.
start producing.
Wow,
a
and you're
longer journey.
you're obviously gonna give a paper, the rejuvenation of the basin.
the rejuvenation the second time around.
The
the rejuvenation of the basin, and then in quotes, I was right.
Yeah, just 15 years late.
Just-
So-
Okay.
So anyway, we're gonna collect a lot of data out here for sure, and it really comes down. We're gonna collect, I think it's 7 billion traces just for the ranch per component. So that's 21 billion samples of information. So hopefully we're gonna find something in all this. We're gonna be able to.
And 21
data
billion
redu-
samples, I'd expect something to be found.
Yeah, exactly. We expect something here. But from my perspective, the industry is about these 4 buckets. I like to talk about buckets. I go in and talk to people, and they're trying to figure out from the land position how to plan their wells, right?
Yep.
And then you got a group of people that come in and they figure out, well, okay, I'm going to steer this thing and land it and do that stuff. And then the next crew comes in and completes it. Okay, and they're probably different than that. And then they move on, and then these guys are left for years trying to produce it and make sense out of it and what have you. So these are the 4 buckets, but these are the 4 buckets that we need to find a way to integrate the geology and the geophysics to help each one of these teams of people be successful.
If we can de-risk every single one of those bullet points there, and let's just say we go from, what do you say spacing is right now in the Midland Basin?
Oh, I don't know.
No.
660, 340. I don't know.
660 is too tight. Apparently they
Too
got
tight.
a parent-child
There you go.
issue out there.
1280. Whatever's next. I mean,
Whatever's next. And then also the cool thing about this is doing this shoot now, post-development, how have the geomechanics changed? Because when you have companies like Diamondback and SM, and they're doing these stacked tank plays, right? They're doing a Sprayberry, first, second Sprayberry, a first, second bone spray, or Wolfcamp, and then they're doing a Dean well. Throw that in there, because why not?
So that's
right?
gonna
And
be
then all of a
really
sudden,
interesting.
how is the subsurface changed? How is that max horizontal stress changed, right? We run a couple of FMIs, we understand.
You captured that data
Yeah.
in the
Captured
first
it.
one, in the
We have
original
a
one. You captured.
snapshot of what virgin territory before it got messed up.
Yeah.
Okay?
Dude,
And
so-
now it's been it's been drilled, it's been fracked, it's been totally changed, and you're gonna capture that.
Yeah. So
Yes.
so that
Fluid's
so that
gone.
baseline's captured, and now
What the?
So now
Dude.
think about that, because remember, I've got data sets out here that I can get at least a baseline on some of this stuff.
Yeah.
The older
Yeah.
data sets. But we've got different development within the field. We've got areas that have been fairly heavily developed. We've got total areas that have never been developed.
yep.
Yeah.
And so we should be able to go in there and see for
Holy
these differences.
smokes.
And then if we can, pull up, say while we're shooting this thing, they're fracking a well out here. Maybe we can see the pressure change, over
Yes.
a short
Yeah.
period
So
of
here's
time.
my question to Fairfield, off topic slightly.
Sure.
My question to Fairfield is, are you guys going to be allowed to give presentations on these topics, or only the folks that bought the thing get to understand what you see? Because you are going to start seeing and identifying all these crazy anomalies that actually probably make sense because of the changes that we've caused from doing it like the first
Sure.
shoot to now.
Yeah.
The world needs to hear that. We need to see what that looks like and how that changed.
How are we truly changing the subsurface.
Dude, that has all to do with spacing issues and all that stuff.
Samples, data samples at every level. And the answer to that is we're very optimistic or hopeful that's the case. And because we have a unique client here. Fasken has generously donated their data. You worked on it with your thesis. This is a company that doesn't play by a lot of the same rules that other companies play by. They care about the whole community, the whole system. They're very open to a lot of these concepts. So we didn't even talk about it, but they're shooting 3 full-blown or 3 or 4 VSPs with this as well.
Yeah.
So we're gonna have a VSP up on the platform. We're gonna have a VSP coming down the slope.
Wow.
We're gonna have a VSP down in the basement. We're going to be able to do those facies ties. We're going to have that direct registration.
Right.
We're going to have that information for the converted wave data.
Yeah.
We're going to have stuff that you normally would just never get.
And that's, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not super familiar with VSP, but the idea behind it is that you're getting that seismic horizon absolutely tied to depth.
Pretty much, yes. You get you know exactly the depth that you're at.
Yeah.
And then you also get the registration. You get what the wavelet and all that information is supposed to look like as it travels one direction and hits those geophones down the well. So when you go to the two-way time, which is surface seismic, sometimes there's some variability, and you don't know how to fix that variability or calculate or correct for it. VSPs help you tie that information down so you get some accuracy at a few well locations.
Holy smokes.
That give you a lot of information, and people just don't shoot those. You know, we've actually had a few clients over the years say, well, why don't you include that in your data licensing? We've actually talked a little bit about that. It's like, if you get one client to give up an old well and go shoot it, we can get information you just didn't have in the past. So
Wow. Okay. Really, really cool. So you guys are on depth. It's data that's never been captured before like this. This is the future.